Galatians 5:19 through 21 has a list of sins. We've been talking about step 39, and this includes this list of sins. Each of the levels has a group of sins which we are able to overcome with the resources that were given on that level, okay, techniques, traditions, and so forth. So in Romans we had the list of sins given in Acts 15, and then in Corinthians there was a couple of passages that gave us a list of sins, and now we have a new list of sins, and here there are 4 items on this list that are new, and those are the ones that I want to go over. The other ones are mentioned here probably because we're able to do them a little bit better now with the growth that we have, even though they have already been mentioned and we should already be overcoming those things. But let's go into the 4 items that are new. Okay, so in the Aramaic New Testament, it reads adultery, impurity, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, enmity, strife, jealousy, anger, stubbornness, treacheries, heresies, envy, murder, drunkenness, revelry. All right, so the first new item is lasciviousness. Lasciviousness, it means to do things that are encouraging lust. Okay, one of the things that encourages lust is dirty talking. And so we need to really watch what we say with regard to that. And so this is saying that if you are doing something or saying something that is going to encourage lust, that is part of the category of adultery. So another thing that would encourage that is pornography, and that might, if you're just doing it with yourself, then that would encourage lust upon yourself. Okay, so anything that is going to encourage lust with others or with yourself is going to fall into this category. We need to encourage each other to live sinlessly. Eventually we're going to be living in the land of Israel, where all of the temptation around us in our society is going to move us towards righteousness, as opposed to the society that we live in today, which is pulling us towards sin. And our congregation needs to be a little piece of Israel, a little place where we're doing things differently to encourage each other towards righteousness. All right, and this goes along with the vow of silence. I'm going to give another video on the vow of silence, but it is where it's a technique that we're going to use, a tradition that we're going to use, that is going to help us to say things that are going to be spirit-led rather than saying things that are from the flesh. All right, let's move on. The next one that is new is witchcraft. Some translations have sorcery. And this refers to actually a slew of different kinds of sins. Deuteronomy 18:10 and 11 reads, "There shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire, or one who practices witchcraft, or a soothsayer, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who conjures spells, or a medium, or a spiritist, or one who calls up the dead." Okay, so we have already mentioned the idea of spells back in the Romans level. In Matthew 6, it says don't repeat a lot of words like the Pharisees do. What it's talking about is that there are we're thinking in terms of the words having the power rather than God. And in rabbinical Judaism, which is the subject of Galatians, we have some of this, and we need to get away from that if we have been involved in some of that from if we had a rabbinical Jewish background, for example, or if we were being influenced toward rabbinical Judaism by someone, as the Galatians were. So the prayer book, for example, what they're doing there is they have a whole bunch of words, prayers, blessings, what have you, that you're supposed to read, and as a result you fill up your day with these prayers and blessings, words, in order to avoid sin. So in other words, the power over sin in their system is coming from the words rather than coming from God. And we are dependent upon the Spirit and all of the four resources from God that help us to avoid sin. Okay. Another thing that is found in rabbinical Judaism is Kabbalah, and Kabbalah has a tendency to move into spells where you're using words in order to make things happen. And so if you've ever got involved in Kabbalah, that's a spell, that's a witchcraft. It's something that we should avoid. Kabbalah has some good elements to it, but the spell side of the thing is definitely incorrect, and that is what we need to get rid of. Let's see. The next one that is new is heresies. Heresies means false doctrines, and when we talk about heresies from our viewpoint, we're not talking about inconsequential doctrines. We're talking about specifically incorrect information on the gospel. Okay, and so that's exactly what we're studying at this level. We're understanding the gospel. We're understanding the difference between the gospel of Romans and these other gospels, the rabbinical gospel. We're also going to study James and 2 John, 3 John, and Jude, which deal with Gnosticism, and so which is the precursor to Christianity that we have today. And so it goes into the Christian gospel, which is incorrect. And it shows us the difference between these Gospels. And understanding this difference is the key to getting away from heresies. Heresies in terms of having a different gospel. Now, when you use the word heresy in a Christian way of using it, it refers to all kinds of doctrines. You know, if you don't have the Trinity right, for example, that's considered to be a heresy. But because of the fact that the Trinity is not part of the gospel, an understanding of that incorrectly is not considered to be a heresy in terms of what the Scripture is calling a heresy. So it has to be an incorrect gospel in order to be a heresy, and that's exactly what we're studying at this level to fix that problem. All right, the fourth new sin is revelry. Revelry is very interesting. It refers to instrumental music, okay? Now, the Psalms are filled with all kinds of stuff about instrumental music. Okay, Psalm 150 is all about instrumental music. So when it says that instrumental music is a sin, it doesn't mean that all instrumental music is sinful. What it means is that there are certain kinds of instrumental music that is sinful. Okay, and so that's what we have to look at. So in other words, we're talking about worldly music. Okay, and to make a clarification on this, it has nothing to do with the beat. Okay, there's all kinds of songs out there that are wonderful songs that use all kinds of different beats. Rock and roll is considered to be evil in some circles because of the fact that its background in African promiscuity. But the problem is not the beat, okay? So if you have a song that is in the wrong kind of beat, there's no problem with the beat, okay? The problem is with the words. Onward Christian Soldier is one of the oldest hymns in the hymn book. It was written by Martin Luther. So it's considered, to have the right beat, right? Well, that song, the melody of that song came from a popular pub song of the time. And so I mean, this is common. Who invented instrumental music? It was Cain's sons, okay? They were the guys who came up with invented all of this stuff. And yet this is used in the Scripture for worship of God. And so the problem is the words. And you can take it the other way. There's a lot of Christian music out there that I would call worldly. It talks about all these problems, the guys doing drugs and everything else, right? And down at the end of the song it says, but the answer is Jesus, Well, what is that influencing you to do? Well, it's influencing you with all of this worldly stuff that most of the song is about. The little phrase down at the end does not fix it. And so when we have music, we need to have music that is going to encourage us to get closer to God throughout the song, not just one little piece at the end. And so we need to look at the music that we're listening to at this level and make some changes in our habits to get rid of any worldly music that we may be listening to. If you're listening to worldly music in your car on the way to work or whatever, that's going to influence you in the wrong direction. And we want to increase our input of God. Eventually, we want to get 100% input from God, and this music issue is something that we need to address at this level. Okay, so those are the 4 new sins. So look at those, see how you're doing in those areas, see what you need to fix in your life concerning those things. Look at the traditions that you're supposed to be doing, because the traditions are what is going to be changing those things. Okay, and if you have any problems or issues, things that you don't understand, you need to bring that to Shabbat for our meeting.